Here are the answers for the section 9-5 homework. Page 351. Number 1, let's evaluate the base 10 log of 92.5. The textbook talks about using a log table, but we don't have to do that with modern technology. Just take the calculator, push the log button, and input 92.5. If you round off the answer, it's about 1.966. Log of 7 can be done the same way. The answer is about 0.845. To figure out an anti-log, also called an inverse log, you need the button on the calculator for inverse log. Now, it looks different on different calculators. On the one that you have on the desk, it is the 10 to the x button. So you press that button and then use the 1.4362 as that exponent value. Let's do that and see what we get. The answer, if you round it, is 27.3. Number 19 is done the same way. Use the button on the calculator called 10 to the x, and then for the value of x, put in that value they give you. This makes 346.97. For the review assignment, we're evaluating logarithms, but without using a calculator. For number 2, we have the base 10 log of 0.01. To do this, you're asking yourself, what exponent do you raise the base 10 to get the result 0.01? Remember that 0.01 is the same thing as 1/100th. To make the number 10 turn into the fraction 1 over 100, you would need a negative exponent, and that negative exponent would be -2. For number 4, the base is 27. When you evaluate a log, you're looking for an exponent. 27 to what exponent makes 9? Let's rewrite 27 as 3 to the third power. And remember, we're still wondering, what exponent do you raise that to end up with 9? 9 is 3 to the second power. We now have the same base. Let's examine the exponents. 3 times what makes 2? And we could make ourselves a little equation to help us figure that out. If you divide both sides by 3, we get 2/3. So this answer is 2/3. Number 6, 4 to what exponent makes 1/2? Let's rewrite this and try to get a common base. The number 4 is 2 to the second power. So 2 to the second power raised to what exponent makes 1/2? Remember, the number 1/2 is 2 to the -1 power. So now look at the exponents. 2 times what makes -1? If you need to, you can make a little equation. 2 times x makes -1. Then divide both sides by 2 to get -1/2. Number 8, the base is 1/4. We want to evaluate the logarithm, so that means figure out the exponent needed to make the argument of 1/2. So 1/4 raised to what power makes 1/2? First, let's rewrite 1/4 as 2 to the -2. And again, figure out what exponent you need to make 1/2. But 1/2 is 2 to the -1. So -2 times what number makes -1? Let's do a little equation over here. When you divide both sides by -2, we get 1/2. And so this answer is 1/2. Number 10, 1/5 raised to what exponent makes 25? Let's think of 1/5 as 5 to the -1. And think of 25 as 5 squared. Now that we have the same base, we can examine exponents. -1 times what exponent makes a 2? And we see that x has to equal -2. Number 12, 3/4 raised to what power is equal to 1? And that would be the 0 power. Number 14, the base is x. X to the first power equals the argument, which is 10. I guess the x has to be a 10. Number 16, x to the third power equals the argument of the log, which is the 125. Therefore, what is x? It has to be a 5. Number 18, 6 to the negative 2 is equal to the argument of the expression, which is x. 6 to the negative 2 is 1/36. Number 20, the base is 8. The value of the log is the 2/3. That becomes an exponent on the base, and that's equal to the argument. So what is 8 to the 2/3? Well, 8 to the 1/3 is 2, and then 2 to the second is 4. So x is 4. Number 22, the base is 9. The exponent is x, and that's equal to 27. 9 to what power makes 27? Let's rewrite the 9 as 3 squared. And rewrite the 27 as 3 cubed. Now we have the same base, so we can examine exponents. 2x equals 3. Divide by 2 on both sides, and we get x equals 3/2. Number 24. 2 to the x power equals 0.5. 0.5 is the same as 1/2, so 2 to what power makes 1/2? That would be the negative 1 power. Number 26, the base is square root of 3. The exponent is 6, and that's equal to x. So what's the square root of 3 to the 6th power? Well, let's think of the square root of 3 as 3 to the 1/2 power, and then raised to the 6th, because now we can multiply exponents, and this makes 3 to the 3rd, which is 27. Number 28, x to the 1/6 is equal to the square root of 2. Let's rewrite the square root of 2 so it's in exponential form. 2 to the 1/2. Next, let's solve for x by raising both sides to the 6th power. That gets the letter x alone. And this is 2 to the 3rd, which is equal to 8. Next one, the base is the square root of 5. We're raising it to the x power, and that's equal to the 25. Let's do the square root of 5 in its exponent form. 5 to the 1/2 power. And think of 25 in its exponent form. 5 squared. Now we have the same base, so we can equate the exponents. 1/2 x is equal to 2. Therefore, x is 4. Number 32, the base is 10, the exponent negative 2, and that's equal to the x minus 1 squared. Let's remove the squaring on this by raising to the 1/2 power on both sides. This makes 10 to the negative 1 is equal to x minus 1. This is 1/10 is equal to x minus 1. Then add 1 to both sides, getting x equals 1 1/10. For number 34, we're asked to graph this exponential, and we're asked to graph this logarithm. I'm going to do the exponential in green ink by making an xy table. For one of the choices, I'll choose x is 0. 1/2 to the 0 makes 1. And I'll choose x is 1. 1/2 to the 1 makes a half. When I choose x is 2, 1/2 squared is 1/4. Let's choose negative numbers for x. 1/2 to the negative 1 is 2. And 1/2 to the negative 2 is 4. Now we can graph those dots. Switch to red ink for the logarithm function. What happens when we choose 0 for x? 1/2 to the y power is equal to 0. there is no exponent you can raise to get a result of 0. So y is undefined. What if x is 1? 1/2 to the y power is equal to 1. Y turns out to be 0. What if x was 2? 1/2 to the y power is equal to 2. The y has to be -1. What if x was 4? 1/2 to the y power is equal to 4. So y is -2. What if x was 8? 1/2 to the y power is equal to 8. So y is -3. Let's graph the dots. When x is 0, it was undefined. There are no dots. 1, 0 is a dot on the graph. 2, -1. 4, -2. And 8, -3. Let's draw a red line through the dots. Notice it has the y-axis as an asymptote line.